This cover yonder off of this 1937 Maytag, I was getting ready to call it a day. And this cover, y'all see that right there? That's that there, if you was in a body shop, you would call that spot putty. It's to fill in the little imperforations in this cover. And this cover here in particular, I want it to be a little bit on the hot rod side, really slick. So I am putting some spot putty on this cover. And as you can see, I'm just working it. I'm covering the complete. I'll probably do this again on this particular cover right here. And I've done found out, you see it's kind of rough right up in there, and just put you a gob on there, you know, put a plenty, because you're going to sand it almost completely away. You'll have very little of this, if any, left on the. And the reason you do this is so that it will, when you sand the rusty metal primer, it gums up to sandpaper. And if you put this spot putty on here, when you sand it off, right there, that's all right. I did block this out. The part, I wanted that to be level, so I did block that out. I am not looking for the outcome to be glass slick. I do not want that type finish on this cover. I want this cover to match the rest of the engine, so I do not want this to be glass slick, but I do want it to be clean and level, a good repair. So I'm going to leave that just about like, well, we're going to stop right there. There's no reason to go any further. It's all feathered in. It's not very thick. It's really, really thin. If I go any more, I'll be down to bare metal. The bottom part down here was it was really, really, really dented up. And, you know, just like 5 minutes or so, scuffing this spot putty. This is what you want to end up with at this point. It's very, very, very light, very thin spot putty inside where it was rusted on this part down here. The rust pits was quite deep. And just spot putty, knocked it down there with the 320, and the side cover up to this point where we're at now. I scuffed it down, and you might be able to see that if you remember, this went through the electrolysis tank. It was cleaned really good, but it had a lot of rust on this lower part down here, like it maybe had been in the mud or something. Quite deep rust pits, but it was cleaned up to bare metal. Also, it had a dent. It was warped. It came across like that, to the point where this was broken off. If you remember, I'm going to prime it once more. And I felt through painting these through the years, I came up with this deal, this arbor, just a piece of metal of the appropriate size, and you put it right in there like that, lock that down. Now you can hold this and spray it in all positions, and it won't get away from you. But do not let the piece of metal protrude out this way, because when you spray around it, then you can't get it back through yonder. Also, I will take a piece of masking tape and go around the back of this right here. I do not want any paint on the mating surface there. It's just easier to mask it off now than it is to remove the paint later. Another useful tool that I came up with is this. Actually, all it is a piece of all thread with two plastic washers that are exactly the size of that mating surface right there. The other washer is the size of that mating surface, and you just put that on there like that. Just snug it up, and now you've got a arbor to hold this part while you spray it. The next thing we're going to do is install this segment here. It's a S. It's marked right in yonder, S307. Always put your taper pin in the crankshaft to discover which is the small end and which is the large end. Do not put it in backwards. Also, do the same thing with this part. Discover which is the large end and the small end. This one will go on there like that. Put the pin in yonder, and then we're going to set her. We're going to drive her on in yonder. Y'all see that slot up in yonder? It's got a gap in it right there. That's the part that you want to spread apart. I usually use a sharp chisel to just get it started, and then take a blunt chisel and open it up just a little bit more. Put the drift punch there and snug it up. You see the amount? You see the amount that sticks through? And also another tip is, when you're putting that taper pin in, always install it where the slot is. A long ways with the cylinders. Do not install it with the slot this ways, as when you spread that apart, you will most likely crack that, because you're putting the stress on each side. If you line that up this way, then you're putting the stress on that side and this side. At that point, most of the time they will stay right where they're at. If you open it up from the side, from each side, just open that up. Do you see the amount of that's open? That's sufficient. The way you do that, turn it up on its end and put one of these steel balls in each pocket. Four of those steel balls. And this part here is a S310. Drop it right like that, and that's all they are to assembling that, except this snap ring go right there in that groove. That's all they are to installing a snap ring. It will not get off of there. After I get it painted, spray some light oil in each one of those little segments. You can see them in there.